All right, welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. You know how sometimes you hear those verses about Jesus being like not of this world?
Yeah.
We're going to dive into that today.
Yeah.
Specifically, we're looking at John chapter 8, verses 14 and 23. And usually when people bring up these verses, it's to say, this is proof that Jesus literally existed in heaven before he was born. But the source material we're looking at today takes a very different approach.
Interesting. Yeah, tell me about it.
So, we're taking a look at a piece from a website called The Church of the Firstborn. And it's written by someone named Brother Mark.
Interesting.
And Brother Mark, he does not hold back. He just jumps right into it, challenging these long-held views about where Jesus came from.
So what's his take?
His main argument is that these verses in John might not be about Jesus physically being in heaven before being born. Instead, he suggests it's more about a spiritual origin. So Jesus having this awareness of his mission right from the get-go.
Right, like it's not so much about a place, but more like source of his purpose.
He connects this idea to the concept of being born again.
Oh, interesting. So
being the real key to not being of this world.
That's interesting. So it's like he's drawing this line, between the everyday worries and this like deeper eternal reality. And he's asking us which side we're on.
He actually uses the Pharisees as an example of what it means to be of this world. They were so focused on all these religious rules. But Brother Mark is saying that kind of made them miss the point of who Jesus really was.
That's interesting because, if they were the ones so focused on rules and they're considered of this world, what does that say about, true spiritual transformation? It makes you think.
Right.
So it's not enough to just follow the rules.
It seems like it's about more of a shift in how we see things.
Or a deeper change within. But then Brother Mark throws a real curveball.
Well, what's that?
With this word whence. Right, which usually means where from.
Right.
But he says in this context, and based on the original Greek, that whence could actually mean to drink.
Whoa, hold on.
Yeah.
Whence can mean to drink.
Now this changes everything.
I know, right? That's crazy.
Are you telling me there's a connection here to Jesus' suffering?
That's exactly what he seems to be getting at. If we connect this to the pucky pray, the bigger picture, it could. Link these verses to Jesus knowing about his suffering and sacrifice.
It makes me think about his prayer in Gethsemane, where he talks about drinking from that cup.
Right, of suffering. Of suffering. That's a powerful connection.
Yeah. Very powerful.
And it makes you realize that, the Jewish people back then might have been expecting a completely different Messiah.
Yeah.
Like they wanted a political leader, someone to free them from Rome.
Right.
Not someone focused on spiritual salvation.
That's a good point. It's like this clash between, what people wanted and what true spiritual focus is about.
Yeah. Brother Mark really digs into this contrast. He talks about the truthful God versus the lie-lying God of this world.
Interesting.
And he uses the Hebrew word Elohim for both of them.
That is interesting.
Which I thought was really interesting. This idea of two,
opposing forces.
Yeah, it's thought-provoking.
It's really thought-provoking.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying there are, two paths, two sources of truth. And we have to choose which one
to follow. Which makes me think about another point he brings up. He quotes John 8:1, where it says, they understood not that he spoke to them of the Father. Even back then, people were confused about what Jesus was really teaching.
Right. Even those closest to him, it seems like. Sometimes they missed, the deeper meaning of his words.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even back then, within early Christianity, there were already different views on Jesus' divinity.
You're right. And Brother Mark specifically mentions debates surrounding, the Council of Chalcedon in 451 AD.
Oh, wow.
Which was a major event in church history. I mean,
so these fundamental questions about who Jesus was.
The whole point of the council was to address, this question of Christ's nature. Was he human or divine or somehow both?
Wow. So these questions have been around for centuries.
Right. And this highlights something really important, that theological thought isn't static.
Yeah.
Our understanding
of
Jesus and his divinity has evolved and reinterpreted over time.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
Not a destination.
Exactly.
Which brings us back to what Brother Mark was saying about being not of this world.
He seems to be suggesting that if we want to align ourselves with the truthful God, we need to be open to challenging our assumptions and embracing new perspectives.
Right. It's about looking beyond just the physical world and being open to a higher spiritual reality. And that takes constant reflection and a willingness to grow in our understanding, which is basically what it means to truly follow Jesus. It's not
clinging to rigid interpretations, about actively seeking truth and allowing ourselves to be transformed by it. Yeah, it's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion here.
Oh, I like that.
You think you understand these verses, but Brother Mark is really encouraging us to dig deeper, to question what we think we know.
And speaking of digging deeper, I was really struck by Brother Mark's focus on this idea of two opposing gods. He uses that Hebrew word Elohim for both.
Right.
Which I found really interesting.
It is a powerful choice of words. By using the same term for both the truthful God and the lying God. He's highlighting this duality that runs through so much of the Bible. Think about Adam and Eve, the temptations of Jesus and the wilderness, even the battles between angels and demons. There's this constant struggle between good and evil, light and darkness.
And Brother Mark seems to be saying that this struggle, it isn't just some abstract theological concept,
Right.
It's playing out.
It's happening in our lives every day.
Every single day. He's suggesting that aligning ourselves with a truthful God requires a conscious choice.
It does.
A deliberate turning away from the temptations and deceptions of this world.
It makes you think,
It does.
Which God are we really serving?
Follow the path of truth
and
spiritual growth? Or are we getting caught up,
right?
In the fleeting desires and distractions?
The illusions.
Yeah, the illusions of this world.
Right.
And this brings us back to that idea of being born again. It's not just about accepting a set of beliefs. Or going through some ritual. It's about
a change.
Yeah.
A radical transformation of our hearts and minds, a reorientation of our entire being towards the truthful God.
So it's about actively choosing to live in a different way.
It is, to see the world through a different lens.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not always easy.
It's not.
It takes work.
It takes work.
It
requires constant vigilance.
Yeah.
A willingness to challenge our own assumptions and biases.
Yeah. And a commitment to seeking truth.
Because let's be honest, sometimes the truth,
it can be challenging.
Yeah, it can be really challenging.
It can make us face things.
It can force us to confront our own shortcomings and make difficult choices.
You're right. But Brother Mark seems to be suggesting that it's in those moments of discomfort, those times when we're wrestling with difficult truths, that we experience the most profound spiritual growth.
So it's about embracing the struggle, knowing that it's part of the journey.
Yeah, and trusting that the truthful God will guide us even when the path is uncertain.
It's like we're explorers, constantly seeking new insights and understanding, even if it means venturing into uncharted territory.
Which brings us to another really interesting point that Brother Mark makes about how the word whence could potentially mean to drink.
Yeah.
He connects this to the idea of Jesus knowing about his suffering and sacrifice, using that imagery of drinking from a cup.
It's like there's this hidden layer of meaning here, something that we might miss if we just stick to, a surface level reading of the text.
It's as if Brother Mark is inviting us to step into the story, to experience it through the eyes of Jesus.
Walk in his shoes.
Imagine what it must have been like for him knowing, the suffering that lay ahead, yet willingly choosing to embrace it for the sake of humanity.
That's such a powerful image. It makes you realize that Jesus' mission, it wasn't about achieving worldly power or glory.
Right. It was
about something far deeper.
Deeper and more profound.
And more profound. It was about offering a path
to
true freedom, a way to break free from the chains of sin and death and experience the fullness of life that comes from knowing the truthful God.
That's a message that resonates just as strongly today as it did back then. In a world filled with so much noise and distraction, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. But Brother Mark's interpretation of John 8.14 and 23 reminds us that there's a deeper reality, a higher purpose that we're all called to embrace.
Yeah, that journey. It begins with, a simple but profound choice to turn away from the lying God of this world and align ourselves with the truthful God.
The source of all truth and light.
It's a choice. That requires...
It does courage, honesty, and a willingness to step outside our comfort zones.
It's a choice that ultimately leads to...
Freedom.
Meaning. And that deep, lasting joy that this
world can't offer.
Just can't offer. It really makes you think about how much, our own desires and expectations can shape how we see the world, even when it comes to, something like faith.
It's so true. We often come to the Bible, or any sacred text, really,
with these preconceived notions about what it should say, or what we want it to mean.
Right.
But Brother Mark's interpretation here, of John 8.120 to 23, it challenges us to set aside those assumptions and to approach these verses with fresh eyes.
Like he's saying it's okay to ask these tough questions, wrestle with these ideas and come to our own understanding.
And that's where the real growth happens, both intellectually and spiritually.
Is that wrestling?
Yeah, when we're willing to grapple with these complex ideas, to challenge our own beliefs and consider different perspectives. We open ourselves up to a much richer and more meaningful understanding of faith.
And isn't that what, being not of this world is all about?
I think you're right. It's about moving beyond a surface level understanding of things, seeking a deeper truth that transcends the limitations of our human perspective. So how do we do that? How do we actually apply?
That's the big question, these ideas to our own lives.
I think Brother Mark would say it starts with that conscious choice to turn away from the lying God of this world and embrace the truthful God. It's about making a commitment to truth, to honesty, and to living in alignment with our highest values.
And that means constantly examining our own motivations, our desires, and asking, am I following the path of truth, or am I getting caught up in these illusions and distractions of this world?
And it's not about, achieving some perfect state of enlightenment. It's about embracing the journey with all of its twists and turns and trusting that the truthful God will guide us along the way.
So it's a lifelong process, of learning, growing, and striving to live in a way that reflects the truth we've discovered.
And that truth, as Brother Mark
so eloquently reminds us, is that we're not meant to be confined
by the limitations of this world.
Right, we're meant for something.
We're meant for something
far greater, something that transcends time and space.
It's almost like we're catching a glimpse of another dimension, a realm of infinite possibilities.
And the more we open ourselves to that reality, the more we experience, that freedom, joy, and sense of purpose.
That sense of purpose that comes from knowing we're connected to something truly extraordinary.
So to wrap up this incredible deep dive, let's leave our listeners with this question.
Okay.
If, as Brother Mark suggests, even in the first century, people were debating about Hans Relicus. Jesus was divine. Does this change how you view the evolution of Christian thought over time? That's something to ponder. Thanks for joining us on this exploration of John 8.42 and 23. We hope you've gained some new insights and maybe even a few questions to wrestle with. Keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep diving deep. Until next time.